Grok, and that means the Ruby will actually be going to
EXP. Hey, wait.
the gold lane.
The gold lane, yeah.
Or
Mid?
mid?
No, I've seen Terizla mid.
I've seen Terizla mid too. Okay, so it's a very flexible draft for IHC, and maybe the red side, that's why they've gone for it.
And that's... So Homeboys might need more damage here, right? Looking at all these tanky guys. So it looks like the plan for IHC is to slow the game down, because imagine if this is a Terizla mid, how are you gonna invade? And we gotta remember how Zorn likes to play. He will go inside your jungle, trying to slow down your jungler, but if you're going up against a Grok and a Terizla mid duo, you can't really do that. So maybe the draft coming in from IHC is that they understand how Homeboys plays, they understand how Zorn plays, so they want to slow it down. So now the Roger as well as the Minotaur gets picked up. The Roger, again, it has been nerfed, his passive damage onto max HP, but I feel like it's still good. The only thing is, I wonder if it's going to be enough to really destroy this heavy front line coming in from IUC.
Yeah, I think it's all about adapting to the odds that they have and the composition that they have against them at this point. Because for IHC, they have a lot of lockdown, a lot of re-engage and disengage too, and they can play around with the CC, deal more damage. My big question is, if the Terizla does go into the mid lane, they might need some sort of a hyper carry maybe, because
Natan?
initially, yeah, probably something like a Natan, but it does seem like he is hovering over the Beatrix. That would make sense for Bebex especially. He loves playing that Beatrix pick, but they go for the Pharsa instead. So it is going to be a Ruby Gold. They're going to play with the Pharsa as that mage in the mid lane. They needed a little bit more magical damage, but as you can see from the pick rate and the win rate here, it's been picked up twice, and it has a 0% win rate. IHC with a very brawly composition that relies heavily on a snowball, but technically they can still and look to scale with the lane.
The only thing is, I'm looking at the lanes here. Gold lane, Claude going up against Ruby is kind of uninteractive, where the Claude is just going to farm out, and he's not going to be in lane long enough. He's going to go somewhere else. But then when it comes to the team fight, it's probably going to be on the Claude to use his BMI to get onto the far side and use the Blazing Duet to disrupt her using the Feather S-Strike. So looking at the drafts here, a very interesting draft coming in from IEC as well as Homeboys, where it's kind of going away from their usual style. But either ways, we're jumping into the very first game of Group B in day number 2 of Wildcards.
Based on my experience though, LaFell, it does seem like, for Bebex onto the Ruby, I would say, on paper, it would make sense that it's going to be a non-lane, right? For the Claude, just utilize the range, go for the farm, use the Battle Mirror image whenever Bebex walks up. But the Ruby is very, it's so deceiving. You think she's a melee hero that can't really poke you down, but the range of that passive is quite massive, and you will be able to bully your opponent usually. So as long as IHC are able to funnel some resources into the bottom lane, not really, gold or XP, but mainly with some pressure relieved off of that lane would be really good. But Ethan, starting the top, forced to flicker early on, not even the first minute, and now he will pop that Power of Nature to escape.
I would say that's big. It's a good thing that he uses Flicker there, because it's still under 2 minutes, so extra damage in the jungle. Forbit taking quite a lot of damage, and Zorn is in the middle of things.
The Terrify onto 2 members. Zorn still able to flicker out. Chibi looking for the kill now, maybe even looking for the invade as Forbit rotates back in towards the jungle to relieve some of the pressure away from Ling. But in the bottom lane, Nets is doing a very good job at just suppressing this force of the Ruby in the gold lane.
One small thing that's a little bit unfortunate, I think Chibi was absorbing one minion coming in from the mid, so perhaps Udil is going to take a little bit more time before he gets his level 4. But again, it's a small thing, probably wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Zorn finds Xora. Xora is already level 4. Zorn is already taking quite a bit of damage.
He doesn't have the flicker. That is a very important thing to note down, as a turtle will spawn in 13 seconds, but he's giving the Warcry, by the way, for the Roger. And for Xora, it's the QC, not the Warcry we're used to. Zorn walking up, getting the knock up. Ethan doesn't have the flicker now. That's even Xora jumping in, but Chibi does a whole lot of damage. Already took the purple buff earlier. Xora will be able to walk back into the purple buff. Both teams not setting up for the turtle.
I feel like Chibi has the right idea here. You got to make sure that IHC Esports is always below 50% health, though, but Zorn taking a lot of damage. Looks like he's going to get taken down. No, he still survives.
And the Eternal Guard actually turns it around. That's the penalty zone, but it will not be able to save Forbid in the mid lane. First blood over to Homeboys.
I was going to say, Homeboys, their idea is to make sure that everyone coming in from IHC Esports have very low HP before contesting anything to make the threat of Chibi actually going in with the light compounds being very, very high. Zixora, he still wants it. Supply gets him.
Mid-air, he catches him with the onward, and Zixora is going to be bursted down by Udil. Now the Turtle taking Chibi, walking up into the enemy jungle, invading already, trying to take as much as he can to punish Zixora.
Looks like with this draft, Homeboys is able to pick up the tempo. IHC Esports, having a jungler, a Ling as the jungle, you want to make sure that you're able to farm up as safely as you can. Looks like he's having a little bit of trouble, but even so, in terms of the gold, it's only 500 gold difference, and it does look like Zixora is going for a Berserker Fury first item, so he's not going to be that far behind.
Locked up again, Forbid going to be knocked up. Ethan used the power of nature earlier, and Bebex has rotated, but in the early game, I can't help but say, for Bebex at least, he's kind of failed to utilize that pressure. Udil, on a barrier, not able to really go for anything. Bebex, with I'm offended onto 2 members right in the middle. Fury, the wall charge with the Feather Airstrike, gets comboed together. Zixora would attempt to blaze, dumping into this fight, but Suppot will also rotate much quicker. And now see the Bebex caught all alone, running away. That's cutting him down slowly but surely with one last battle mirror image to the front to take him down.
I don't know whether that is worth it or not for IHC Esports. That was a good engage. Make sure you're doing something and not nothing. But the fact that you gave Nats an assist as well as a kill makes it so that he gets his Trinity item faster. And this is why I was questioning the Ruby going up against the Claude. Even though, yes, like you said, having more range is going to be good, but Nats on his Claude, he's very careful. When he's using the scaling kind of marksmen, he doesn't trade all that much, and it looks like it translates into this game. Replayception!
Replayception. This is the replay earlier in that skirmish. It was such a good layer of CC from IHC, but Homeboys just played it well. They knew only 2 of their members were caught there. Looks like Suppot's going to be taking some damage, but he does still have the Primal Wrath, and IHC will not decide to commit under that tier 1.
And again, one thing that you got to take note was that during that replay, we saw Nat actually controlling his range very, very well. Just make sure that his positioning is good. As I say that, he's standing face-to-face against Bebex.
You know, maybe,
talk about timing.
Yeah, maybe you don't try to predict things.
Yeah,
but you taught me this at M3, man.
True. Maybe I should stop talking.
Good barrier. You want to try to slow the pace of the game down because Homeboys at this point with, hey, actually, if we take a look at the gold lead, it's not that big. The Terrify with the Eternal Guard. Udil being able to chunk Ethan, but he has the power of nature, walks up now as Zixora does some damage. Suppot not go for the onward just yet. Pops the Primal Wrath, assassin wall charge into the back line. That's a steal from Zixora. As Suppot deals with the Charisma, Ethan in the back going to be ran down by Chibi as Zixora gets terrified mid-air again, knocked up and taken down by the hammer of Zord. Now walking up with a 2-man knockup, team 4, IHC, they'll still be able to get a trade off of that, but it's 3 for 1.
Yeah, but again, we talked about this, how both teams, they really like to brawl. Even if, for the first part, you see like, oh, this might not be a good trade, but still, the team will go for it because in terms of mechanics, they're amazing. Bebex was able to steal that one. Chibi getting a turret up top. Now we're starting to see a little bit of difference coming in from the gold. Now it's 1,000 gold lead for Homeboys, but considering it's 7-3, it's not that big of a gold lead when you compare it to the amount of kills as well as the amount of gold generated. Homeboys, they need to make sure that they start to take more turrets so that they can start, well, I would say choking Zixora out of farm, and then you can really get your win condition because as of right now, looking at the EXP earned, the Ling is still earning quite a lot of EXP. He's not being stopped all that well.
Look at this. Just as you say that, right? Zorn tries to stop it alone as the Minotaur. Because nobody was seen on the map. Now an Onward actually going to go in. Eternal Guard as well. Before he's able to escape, but gets caught in Earth Shatter. As now Supply gets caught in the Woodhill. Dies in the back somehow. A blazing away from Nets. Now it's going to be Minus Fury to knock them up. Aizen with a desperate penalty zone. And Ethan will be able to walk away. They'll sacrifice Aizen and Forbid. And it will only give Homeboys a bigger lead here. In the 6th minute of the game, Nets Battle Mirror image to the front, trying to go for a bit more damage to pressure Ethan. But as you said, right now it's not that big of a lead despite the kills.
Yeah, it's really not. The good thing about Homeboy is that they're giving the kills over to the damage dealers. Chibi, Udil, Nets has been joining quite a lot of fights. Chibi is actually getting a lot of gold because he's getting the turrets as well.
Man. 1 level lead for the Roger already. Suppot goes for the armor. Now Earth Shatter. Knocking Zixora up. Goes for the Primal Wrath defensively here to escape from some of the damage. And Forbid has already used up the Feather Airstrike.
Yeah, but the thing is, right now for IHC, they stole the previous one. Looks like it's not going to be stolen this time, I feel like they understand they gotta slow down a bit. They gotta get Zexora onto 2 items. And Homeboys, I feel like they gotta pick up the pace a little bit, because if you give room for the Ling to farm up, it might be one of those things that you regret in the long run.
This time, though, they've been able to pick up a turret on neutral objective. Ethan, he's taking that much damage as a frontliner. Just up against Udil, by the way. This is a Vixana, and he's doing so much burst damage early on. Sora is still, trying to look for that farm, but he is 1 level down. In the late game, even if they do get to the later stage, right? Let's say 10-minute, what? Perhaps a 1v1 here. But Roger versus Ling. Who actually scales better in this kind of matchup?
I feel like whoever has the Sky Piercer has an unfair advantage. Chibi now having the endless battle so that he has a little bit more sustain. It looks like he already used the Retribution onto Ethan.
You can see that damage coming down with the Legend pouncing Sora! Almost gets one-shot Zorn, tries to break the dash, but he doesn't even need to. Chibi just guns him down. What was that damage?
I mean, okay, we asked the question, and the player's like, got you, fam, bet. I'm going to show you how much on-hit damage I deal. And again, I have no idea whether Chibi has the Sky Piercer or not, but 1 hit, and that was like, what, 40% of the HP? I believe that damage was coming from the Endless Battle, and it looks like he does have the Sky Piercer, and interestingly enough, he has the War Axe as well. So like, War Axe is the first item. Interesting build here coming in from Chibi.
Wow, I'm still kind of stunned by that damage.
Was that maximum stacks on the War Axe and the Endless Battle proc? I don't think that's maximum stacks on War Axe.
No, I really don't, right? Because it was a fight that Zexora kind of forced with Ethan as well. So I don't think he had a lot of time to stack up the War Axe. Still, incredible damage down as Zexora goes to his own purple buff. And even here, it's a bit scary for him. Walking to the purple buff as Zorn just screens him, gets that information, and the team plays accordingly. Now they're just back up in their own jungle. They know that they need the Lord. They don't need to go for any crazy, unnecessary skirmishes at this point. But Nets is kind of unkillable, right? I mean, at this point, even if you dash towards him, this is why the quad is so good against Assassins. You blink out. You don't dash out.
And Nets already completed, I believe, his Trinity item because he just completed his Corrosion Sight. Chibi is 4 kills. His 4 kills away from getting the maximum amount of stacks. I believe he's 2 stacks away from getting 10%. 10% lethality, and at 10% is going to be a big game changer. Homeboys, they're going to be able to get this Lord uncontested. IC Esports doesn't have a way to enter the Lord pit, but in the meantime, Zexora understands he needs the farm, so he goes to the side lanes.
Yeah, and he tries to go for a turret there. He does get a trade, but a Lord in the 10th minute of the game, for this kind of composition, usually you would say, for the first Lord, it's not really deadly, but if you take a look at IHC, they're lacking the marksman. They don't have that marksman. They have the Feather Airstrike. I'm not sure if that can actually save them here.
I believe it's deadly because we got to talk about the Lord having 30% more HP now, and you got lethality on this Roger. So any kind of engage, there's a chance for a wipeout.
And your wave clear is also questionable for IHC, right? Like I mentioned, only 4-bit can really go for it, but he has to choose whether he wants to use the Feather Airstrike to some of these members or to the Lord. And I think both are the wrong answer at this point.
Yeah, but personally for me, I would say try to go for the members because, again, 10-minute Lord you can still handle, but the amount of damage coming in from Homeboys is a little bit too much. You got to be very, very careful. Sapat not able to hit his onward.
Ethan taking a whole lot of damage. Zorn looking forward, gets a knock up. Bebex in the front of it all, trying to go for the GB, but it's going to be the frontliners completely melted down. And Sapat walks up with the flicker as well, like compounds from Chibi together with the electrifying damage. Now it's going to be a desperate Tempest ablaze. The Lord might as well just be called the Deadly Lord because in the 11th minute, they've been able to stomp through IHC.
And just like that, Homeboys was able to win the first match of the Group B stage with a lot of damage coming in from the Roger. And looks like the Ruby Goaling going up against the Claude was not able to stop this Claude. The Claude was still able to farm as fast as possible.
The Claude was just farming. They were just looking for skirmishes, and they reacted to some of the plays from IHC, but they capitalized on some of these overextensions all the way from the start of the